Hello and welcome to the EV Cafe podcast, a podcast created with the zero emission future that we all hope for in mind. And every week I'm joined by one of the wonderful team from the EV Cafe, and I have the lovely Sarah Sloman, Sasminator. How are we doing, Sarah?
Hi, I was very much looking forward to this one. Wouldn't miss it.
Good. And well, every podcast that we ever do, we're joined by one of the wonderful innovators, pioneers, and collaborators of our industry. And I'm struggling to think of a better collaborator in our industry than the wonderful Fraser Crichton, everybody, from Dundee City Council. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I am absolutely delighted to be here at EV Cafe. I think it's been a couple of requests to come on, and I'm going to say this right now, I just get busier and busier in the world that I'm in, but delighted to come on and speak to illustrious people like yourselves. John's not here today. Is John on holiday or something? Shame.
Yeah, we're giving him a day off. We're giving him a day off, Fraser. Obviously, you can just pop down the road. He is only down in Falkirk, so you could pop over and have a chat. But yeah, so John is missing today. Sadly, you've got me, but also the wonderful Sarah Sloman. But Fraser, I mean, listen, you have made such an impact in your career. I mean, you're a Green Fleet number 24 person. So, I mean, you're Green Fleet Top 100. Sorry for everybody. I'll explain that properly, shall I? The Green Fleet Top 100 is a leading measure of all of the great and the good of the electric fleet industry or green fleet industry looking to decarbonise transport. And Fraser is up there at number 24. I mean, wow, that is pretty impressive, number one. But been at this game for a long time, 10 plus years. And done some amazing things. And we're going to go through all of those things today. And hopefully, we will learn a hell of a lot about what he's done, but also a little about who he is. So anyway, Fraser, wow, 10 years ago, living in Dundee. What happened?
I wish it was only 10. I was looking, somebody told me the other day, I think it was Kate at Greenfleet that we were at the end of the year. She pointed out that we met 13 years ago, which is quite scary, having lost. Where did those 3 years go? I have no idea. But it just started. I mean, I'm sure other fleet managers will relate to this, but the real moment where I started moving into EVs, moving the transition over from diesel and petrol vehicles was the introduction of the Nissan Leaf. Before that, even 6 months before that, I remember going home, just testing a vehicle, and it was like a milk van, an old electric milk van, if anybody can remember that. And I remember rattling on the road and all these cars passing me, beeping their horns and everything going like, and I'm just sitting there going, this is not going to work. This is just not either. If I can make it home tonight, that'll do. I'll get back in my normal diesel car. But it was the Nissan Leaf, the introduction of that really was the moment where I went, you know what, this vehicle is something completely different, and this is a real game changer. And that was coupled with, I talk about it all the time, going to an air quality meeting. At the time, 13 years ago, my kids were really young. I've got 4 kids, and I'm calling them kids now. The oldest one's 27. So, but at the time, the information that I got about the pollution that transportation was having on the city of Dundee, especially, I keep talking about this topography of it. It's a 150,000 population, 8 miles by 5, really crammed in a small area. So transportation was rough at that time, about 38% of all the nasty pollutants in the air. So it was those two things coupled together were really something that grabbed me, and I thought, right, we have to do something, not for me, but for generations. It sounds kind of cliched and corny, but the bottom line is just that. It's we cannot continue to just pollute our city for the next generations. And it's a pretty simple message, but it's true. That's what drives me every day for all of the stuff that I've done.
And what I've noticed, Fraser, is as you know, I love commercial vehicles, and when I look at your fleet today, I see a real focus on the electrification of commercial fleet that is operating in the towns and cities for your council, particularly the refuse collection vehicles. Of course, you were, I think, one of the first in the country to get some of those going on the streets there. So talk to me about why you've focused on that commercial vehicle bit, because it does seem to be evident from what
Yeah,
you've done.
so obviously the focus, as I said, was to clean up the air through transitioning over to EVs. With the first couple of years, we were trialing it out, seeing if it worked, see if this new innovative vehicles were going to work in X, Y, and Z of the fleet, the council fleet. And it was quite obvious to me that this is going to work. You know, anybody that gets in a car these days, it takes them about, I don't know, 2 weeks, and you go, what the hell have I been driving a diesel, a fossil fuel vehicle for? So it grew exponentially over the period of the 2, 3, 4 years. And the goal, as I said before, was to reduce to improve the air quality. So when you look at a van and a car, they're a no-brainer for me. We are just changing them over as the cycle of the vehicles is. And then you're obviously taking those improvements on what's coming out the back of our vehicles and benchmarking that against our targets. Where it became a game changer on the RCVs is you roughly need about, could be 30 to 40 vehicles, change over 30 to 40 vans to equivalent of one bin lorry. You know, so one RCV. So the gains on just buying. So to put that into context, every time I change over from a diesel to electric bin lorry, I reduce my diesel fuel by 1%. You know, 1% of my fuel costs annually. So at the moment I've got 8, so there's 8% of my annual diesel costs just on 8 vehicles. So it's significant, you know, making big gains. But I'd have to say it's obviously harder to introduce because it's more integrate. You've got to think a little bit more regarding your infrastructure and everybody knows it's quite difficult as it is. But when you start going on to obviously the bigger HGV stuff, you've got to I think a little bit harder on how this actually operates. And then, I talk about all the time, my real goal at the moment on this transition is on the renewable energy side of it. And those bin lorries are the classic case where you've got battery packs, 300 kilowatts on each bin lorry. You know, you add all that up, and if I'm taking it from the grid, you know, the lights will dim down, you know, every time the bin lorries come in, and the city of Dundee will be a little less brighter. So when you start getting into that, I've had to think well in advance of where the energy is coming from and what renewable energies can we cement into that whole project. So, and then as you can hear, once you start getting into it, it is quite complicated, but also it drives you forward either because you can see the benefits at the other end. You can see the reduction through my fleet individually, and also it's a starter for 10 for all the other big organisations in Dundee and surrounding areas that run HGVs to do that classic case, which you guys do with a rally every year, which is to prove that it works. There you go. There's nothing better than proving the concept. You know, that's the story on the bin lorries. The story on the RCVs is they used to do this route, and 3 guys in the bin lorry, and they came up to this number 7. I'll not even name the road just in case they're listening. And they used to jump in the bin lorry and see that number 7. He says that your driving is awful. It's awful. You're going too fast. You're just. And the driver for about 4 years reckoned that these guys were just making fun of him, right? I swap in an electric bin lorry, and he rolls up, and he can hear everything because there's no noise. And now he starts to hear the guy from number 7. He was away to throttle him. So there were so many good things to talk about the bin lorries, but I got this complaint about they don't make any noise and therefore they can hear the complaints the driver. So you're like, oh, for God's sake, I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. So as you probably know, we've also gone to the schools, because this is all about, and you guys are at the forefront of this, is all about communicating and making sure the public, trying as your best to get all this new innovation, electric vehicles out to the public and say, let's get on this. So we've been doing this at a local level, as you're aware, and little, as we go off onto different things, we went into the schools. How do we really get this sort of thing to the next generation? It's all very well us in the council going about in vans and everything. They just want their, heating working at times. But on the bin lorries, you've obviously got a huge surface of advertising on the side of it. So we went into the local schools. We said what we were doing. We've got electric bin lorries. We're moving over the future. Can you name them? So there was great enjoyment of these kids coming out with ideas of and we've got Leonardo DiCarcio. We have I'm trying to think on the top of my head here. We've got Ben Diesel, and there was a whole heap of them that came out from those kids, splattered across the city. They romp around. Victoria Volt is another one, and just those names similar to what you see with the gritters. So the engagement is priceless. And on that one, the funny story with that one is that there was some parents were asking why they weren't involved. Why were they not getting involved? There was complaints saying, I've got some great names, and I'm sorry, the criteria is you've got to be at school and you've got to be under the age of 16. And why? Why are you not allowing us to talk? So it's stuff like that you can suddenly gather steam, and we've done it with the electric sweepers as well. But I have to be honest, just in case anybody pulls me up on this, I really struggling with some of the names, and I just went for Merrill Sweep, which has obviously got nothing to do with electric, but I was cracking. I was cracking with the names at some point. So if any of your viewers have got any names for the next batch of vehicles we've coming through, I'm more than open to listen.
Well, only if they're children, though,
Under
right?
the age of 16, but they could fib. They could fib.
Yeah, they could fib. The thing for me from all of your detail, and for the listeners and viewers, yes, the EV Rally did come to Dundee, and it was to showcase really 3 different types of infrastructure, the route that we had to take. So we went to the science park, and there was a lot of innovation there, particularly with battery storage and new technology. Then we came to a real life example, which was the charger that rises out of the pavement, which at the time, it was the first that we'd all seen outside the V&A, so a really sort of special part of the city. And then we went off to see your hub, which again was something that people hadn't got there yet within their minds about what that could look like and do. Then we went to a Fastned station just outside Dundee, where Power were testing their card, another complete industry first. All happened in Dundee. What really strikes me, though, is your showcase, your ability to showcase what the art of the possible stems from the fact that you are a fleet manager. But since when did a fleet manager have to know about energy, battery energy storage systems, about the civil engineering required to put this infrastructure in, about the different types of RCV and Merrill sweepers that exist, and this education piece that you guys, and it is the fleet manager that gets lumbered with this. I know, empathising with your Nissan Leaf story, our fleet manager put Meals on Wheels into Citroen C0s, and I had to borrow one to do just 16 miles on the motorway, and that was the last time I said I was ever going on the motorway, in case I never went on the motorway ever again, because it was frankly terrifying. But things have changed so much now. In the last 3 years, I think, is the biggest uplift in not just available technology, but available funding and available people to deploy. So what's the biggest challenge you're seeing in your team at the moment? Are you inundated with support, or is it something that is still struggling to get secured?
Yeah, I think 13 years is a long story, right? So I've got, obviously I could be here all day talking about it, but I think I need to emphasize the holistic view that I took a long time ago to say, this is not just about, as a fleet manager of my vehicles in the council, it's only going to do X amount to tackle the problem. If we're serious about this problem, we needed to look at it from a holistic point of view and say, the whole city is up for grabs for moving over transition. So that decision was made about that 10 years ago decision. So that meant that we had to engage with all the different other companies. It was to do with the police, the fire brigade, the NHS, and private businesses. So it's definitely weird. I think about it every morning when I wake up and go, what is the fleet manager wondering about the connection and a meter in the ground and all that sort of stuff? I've just meant to look after that vehicle. But the end game is to move over transition completely. Where it has been easier is because right at the beginning, people just thought I was off my nut. A crazy guy putting what's he doing to that wall and what's the etc. But we were able to tap into the funding from the Westminster, from the Scottish government, from Europe. There was a huge at that time drive, a real big drive to get the whole thing up and running. So we went in for lots and lots of money. So it was all money that came from government, and we kept expanding and developing. To your point now is we're in a completely different place, as we know. You'll not be surprised that the Dundee, let alone all the other councils, have got no money. We have no money. It's all gone. We spent it all in the COVID, and we've got to pay it back. So it's a different landscape now. However, because of what I've put in and because I've just described, we've got a lot of, you talked about the pop-up chargers on street. We've got these hubs. We've got 4 of them. We've got a 5th and 6th one getting built. And we've got revenue coming through. So we've got revenue coming through from various policies we've done with especially taxi industry. I could talk about that all day long, about how many taxis are using the hubs, etc., and our strategy. But the bottom line is we have mapped out the entire city on the targets set. Before they moved the targets, they set the targets, and we have mapped that out, and we need roughly about, you can imagine the numbers. I think it was £58 million at the last hit to properly do this city. What we're a conservative 58 million. Now, the council and the governments are never going to give that. So where we are now, roughly about April, May, we will go out to tender to have a public-private partnership. We're going into partnership with, on a 10 plus 5, a 20-year contract, and that's 2 separate ones. One on the rapid charging hub scenario, and the other one's on the on-street. 2 separate ones. And we've been developing that for probably about two years now, through procurement and through legal. Again, where it's always difficult is that as we always seem to be, it's really good, and I appreciate all the nice words about being innovative but the bottom word is the first. So it just seems to us that when you go around, certainly this country, you're going, who's doing this, and have you got any ideas? We were going to ask you. So it's a compliment, but it's also difficult because there's lots of tenders out here. I've gone off piece again, but there's lots of tenders that councils especially are giving out, and the private industry can't even look at them because they just don't make any sense. So that's where we're going just now. We're on the tip of the point of having contracts put in place within the next 3 to 4 months. We'll have them for the 20-year period. And that's what the long story is. Now, on companies coming in and putting charging infrastructure and hubs, like SSE are doing one in Dundee. Privately, they're putting it in 250 kilowatt chargers, etc. I have no issue with that at all. I think there is no way we're going to do this on our own. So I'm where it becomes difficult is that as a local authority, I have to think about all the taxpayers in certain communities, etc., where at times the company might come in and say, that's not financially viable to put in a charger there. But if we're working together, we can say, look, there's some good land that the council have. You can get that, but I want some chargers in here. And it's a wee bit like internally in Dundee doing the urban rural story that's going on in this country, where the urban areas everybody's cramming, going, we'd love to put chargers in here, but if you've got little villages in Scotland or Dundee, who's going to put a charger in there and ever see their investment back? So we've got to try and work together, in my opinion, to try and look at the benefits of urban areas, but also try and reach out to the rural areas, because in the end, the rural, if you're not giving them any infrastructure, then they'll just say, well, I can't move to an EV. And we're the hub that will come into Dundee. We've got this low emission zone coming in. You've got, all these different elements have got to be thought about before just going piling ahead and going, we'll take a hub here, we'll take a hub there. There's a bit more to it than that. And I think that's where there is a benefit of local authorities being involved in this. The one I use all the time is 3G. So we got 3G into Scotland, and off the companies come in, and off these private companies came in, and they put 3, 4, now up to 4G into Dundee, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, and Glasgow. Absolutely wonderful. The Scottish government has spent the last 10 years spending money on putting in 4G into the Highlands and Islands, because there wasn't commercially viable for the company to put them into all these areas, rural areas. So the Scottish government spent all these years on a budget upgrading all this. You turn the television on, and London are going, hooray, 5G. And we're sitting here going, oh, dear God, Sky doesn't have it. It's still on 3G, and winding things up. So I think that analogy is what we have to try and aspire to regarding the EV infrastructure going forward. We need to try to net that. That's a story of saying we can't just do our cities. And the major people that are going to come into the city, as I said, from the rural areas are going to be driving diesel vehicles at this moment in time, unless we can address that. So there you go. I've gone on a rant
No, but it's really important stuff, Fraser, and I think this is the view that we love from Dundee City Council and all that you've pioneered. It's a very broad view. You've made sure that you've kind of looked at the landscape and not. I mean, you've probably come unstuck once or twice on that journey, right? Because you missed a blind spot or a different, But the thing is, you're absolutely right. There are so many tenders out there. Working in the commercial world every day, we see these tenders coming up. Companies are looking at them and going, well, that doesn't make sense. We can't bid for that because And I really like that idea of saying, right, okay, if you want that nice piece of land over there with the great footfall and the dense population, what you've got to do is take that little bit over there. So listen, I've grown up in the automotive trade, right? So back in the day, we used to get a few part exchanges, and the trader would come in and he'd go, right, that lovely shiny one with low mileage and da-da-da-da-da, I want that one and I'll give you X for that. And you go, fine. Give me X for that, but you're taking those other two crappers round the corner and you'll take them and all and get shot of them. You'll pay this and this for those two and you'll have them as a job lot, or you don't get the nice shiny one. And it's something like that, isn't it? It's similar. It's thinking, okay, how do we get this infrastructure? I must admit, going around Scotland, I'm always quite excited because there is charges in little places that you just wouldn't expect. I know there's probably not enough, right? But there is a good amount. But I love that approach of looking after your locality. I mean, have you had much resistance to that, or do you feel that collaborative approach is working well for you guys and what you want to achieve?
Right. I'm not going to say that's a loaded question because you didn't mean it that way, but I think that what I would say here is that private and public working together, that's a really difficult mix at times because you've got different priorities is what you're looking for. Obviously a private company coming in has got investors and they need the return. I've been in the private industry. I know how it works. So that's what they're looking for. But obviously on the other side is a local authority is trying to look on the community and it's trying to look after its taxpayers and it's trying to make sure that they're looked after. So it's not the same commercial aspect as somebody coming in. So there's kind of two little worlds there clashing together, and it does take time. And what I always talk about is, and I'm not naming any companies or anything that we use, but what I would say is that you need to find a partner that you can long-term rely on. I'll give you a classic example. When you were talking about there, I know Scotland has got quite a good array of infrastructure, but like everywhere, infrastructure is only as good as whether it's working or not. Now, what you can have as many chargers in the world as you want, but if they don't work, it doesn't. The whole system. We still see it today. You guys are talk about it all the time. I saw a video of recently saying, "Oh, I went to this charger. It's got 4 chargers, and it's a wonderful site. And look at it's lovely, but it's not working." And no one's come out to it. In Dundee, when you get to where we are, which is, close to it's over 30% of the taxis are all pure electric. Right? You've got the bin lorries. If I don't have the bin lorries fully charged, the bins don't get emptied. And I've got Meals on Wheels. All our Meals on Wheels vehicles for the old people are all electric. If I do not have them on the road, there's no food for old people. The waste is not getting picked up, and nobody's getting picked up with the taxis. I'm coming down to live with John, and because they'll kick me out of Dundee. I have to have my infrastructure sitting at roughly about 98% use availability. That's what it is on a daily basis. It fluctuates from 98 to 98.5. I have 2 engineers solely in Dundee making sure this infrastructure is working. We've now got coaches, as you're aware, Ember coaches. So they are fully electric. They've now running, I think it's 28 coaches out of Dundee. I've got 150 rapid chargers charging every minute of the day. I have got them down on a 1 hour contract to get them sorted if they go down. Because if they go down, that company is just losing money and all the passengers, etc. When you get into this world, you need to have your infrastructure working. And it's the service and maintenance that becomes just as important as anything else. And when you see, when I go to, I don't know, Pitlochry we'll go for, and I go up to Pitlochry and you get there, like every frustrated EV driver, and the colour is red. Oh my God, you just go, heart sinks. It frustrates me on that way. You can put them in the ground, but you need to make sure that the backup's there. And that's where the reality of where we are in Dundee. Yeah, it is. That's why I'm going grey. It's not to do with going down to Greenfleet and going to great events like that. It's to do with making sure the chargers are working. I get calls at the weekend. I'll be honest. I get calls from the taxi, say that charger's down. Don't even bother going to the back office. They phone me. I need that up and running. It's Saturday night. Let's get, you've got to get it charged up, and you've got to get the charger sorted. It does take over your life a little bit, but then as you hear, the goal is, you can see the goal. You can see people adopting EVs, and the taxi is a classic example of that. I can talk as much as I want about, please, I've got an EV, I had it for years, they're great things. But in Dundee, as I say many times, the first thing they talk about in the taxis, as they do around the world, is the weather. The second thing in Dundee they talk about is said, have a look at my EV. Isn't it amazing? It's great. They then are not getting the focus coming from the council. They're getting it from a taxi driver. They're going back home. They're talking about it. The kids have just named the bin lorries. You're getting it now. It's just that movement of just saying and trying to bring people with us. And I think when you talk about blockers and things like that, I talk about this all the time. My local authority has been fantastic from the very beginning. If you've got leadership from the top pushing you, go further, we think it's a great idea, keep going, that's gold dust. So there is no doubt I've met people that think that I'm the Antichrist for taking their, twin turbined Jag off the road and saying it's evil. They still get that negativity, and they're all blowing up, by the way. I had that this week. every time you step into an EV, it blows up, and you're sitting there going, what are you talking about? This city's just full of it. What are you talking about? But well, as I've heard many times, that some media have got a bit of a story to tell that's not, shall we say, true at all. So, I think I keep banging on about it. The media piece on a local level is so important. It really is. And I talked, I think, at Greenfleet about how we went to EVs. I met you both at those awards. I was rather happy. I had rather too many, shall we say, shandies, and I was delighted. 12 hours later, I was sitting in an 84-year-old's house, getting told that he's lived there all his life, and he's got his pavement and he's got his parking spaces, and I've come in here and I'm putting a pop-up charger in the pavement, and no one told him. He wasn't against it. It was the fact that nobody had communicated that this was happening, and he'd lived there all his life. So, you're sitting there going, I think we're doing everything right in Dundee, but it just takes those things to knock you back. The award was chucked in the cupboard, and you're sitting in the real world of, you're talking to people that they've lived all their lives here, and who am I to come along and change it? And so that community, the community engagement and communication, and I know you guys know this, is so vital as we go forward. And it continues to be there, even though I remember with the hubs, we built the hubs, 3 hubs right across the city, and intentionally built the first one in Lockheed, which was the students, the people obviously not so wealthy, and it was all about, let's not say this is all about Tesla drivers, etc. And we intentionally built it, and we built these 3 right across the city, and the main bus route getting into the city centre went past all 3 of them. And when we did a focus group and sat down, we understood that people in Amsterdam knew more about the EV hubs than the people in Dundee were, because they just kept on going by and going, oh, look, that looks lovely and new. Look at that thing. Look at the solar on top of that. That's absolutely fantastic. But they just thought it was something new and nice, but we'd never actually engaged with them, actually tell them why we were doing it, what it was all about, etc. And we tried to get about, apart from the one I'm talking about, the pop-up charger, we try and get about 6 months in advance ahead to tell the public why we're doing it and what we're all about. So those sort of things are really, really key to going to what we're doing at the moment. And then, as I taught, a regional piece, the taxi drivers always used to say to us, what if I get a fare to London? What if I get a fare to London? And I went, have you ever had a fare to London? And he goes, no, but maybe one day I might. I think that was the golden egg. I'll get him. And I went, but the point was that he was saying, I get fares outside Dundee. What are you doing about that? Yeah. So then that's when we went and looked at, speak to local authorities around about us and said, can we put chargers, and we called them dumbbells at the time, can we put chargers in at the destinations? And this is why the whole strategy drives forward, where then it was obvious, what's the main thing that you're getting taken out regularly? And the main thing that we're getting taken out was for dialysis treatment, etc., not using ambulances. So then we went to the NHS, and when we put rapid chargers into the hospitals, surrounding areas, and up to Pitlochry, we put one in Aviemore, we put one in at Montrose, etc., for all the places that we knew the routes took the taxis, so we could get that. And that's starting to expand it, but also knowing that there is a usage for it, not just going, let's put a charger in there because they don't have one. Let's constantly make sure that they're going to get used, and so there's method behind the madness is probably where I'm heading towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah, your strategic plan there makes a lot of sense, especially with your communication. You talked about stakeholder engagement right up and down, from the public all the way to the seniority who sign this stuff off, right? And I can't see you slowing down anytime soon. And the motivation, as you say, is clean air. At the end of it all, that's the argument that you can't fight with. The global decarbonisation of EVs has many, many sides, but the clean air is absolutely the one. I really like that sort of more global view as well. Where are these destinations and who are using them? The taxis is a great example. I find the private fleet driver, so self-employed, they are the ones who rely on these networks the most, because the chances of them being able to charge at home are slimmer in most cities around the country. The thing they get stung on, though, is having to use public chargers and the price that they then have to pay for that. And it's virtually impossible. We're in payments, so pay through is all about trying to find a way to make a payment easier for people. And you can do all sorts of clever things through apps and discounts and notification to say that it's cheaper and cleaner. Please come and charge now. Have you started to do any innovation trials on encouraging user behaviour to drive the costs down for people like that, the private drivers at all?
So I'm trying to watch my words here, because it's all the innovation has changed, as that's where I'm trying to get to. So this is not a criticism, because when we started all this, Scottish Government came in, and as you know, they came up with one card, the one back office. It works all the way around. For any public charger in Scotland is one back office, and it connects. So that was a way back. I can't remember. I think I'm going to go for 2016, something like that. So it was a long time ago, and all you got from down in England, we need this card, we need that one, it's really complicated, we'd love to be like Scotland. So that is the context of the praise. The problem with it now is this: they get billed every 3 months from now, or monthly billing, etc. On that back office is monthly billing, right? That causes problems, as you could imagine. I really don't want to go in depth into that, but it's, to me, what you're discussing there is point of contact. Is when the payment is made, just like you go to a diesel or a petrol station. And I think that is where we're driving forward to. Now, all the new, as you know, all the new hardware, etc., comes with this card. You put your credit card on, and you'll get. But we've got all this 10-year legacy of charging infrastructure that still is working well, but yet that payment bit is the difficult bit. And I think that we are looking towards. It's a difficult one, because it is a good platform we've got. But the development, especially that you're involved in and changing it, is where we need to get to. This whole move into a contract for 20 years, the whole thing has to work together as a turnkey solution, because it just needs something like that's not working, and the users are not friendly with how it works, for them to suddenly turn on you very quickly. Go, this is a mess. So I agree that where we are at the moment is making sure that it's user friendly on costs, on keeping the costs down, which is, I'm moving away a bit. Obviously, the where it benefits our infrastructure and the energy is the councils in Scotland and all fire brigade, ambulance service, etc. They bulk buy the electricity 3 years in advance. So just put it out there, I'm 25 pence a kilowatt, and that's across the board. That's what I pay. So therefore, I can make sure that the tariffs are not going to go sky high. But also the balancing act is I can't have them too low. That means investment will not come in. But it's a good starting off position, if you know what I'm saying. 25, I know they're 27 next year. I know that some people are paying some serious amount out for their electricity at the moment. So that's a starting off point as far as tariffs are concerned. And we have to juggle that to make sure that it's not distorting the market's probably not the right word, but there's a balancing act here. If I'm bringing that in for 25 pence a kilowatt, why would I want the public of Dundee to end up paying £1 a kilowatt? How's that going to help the drive to move over to EVs that we're still at the tip of the iceberg here? So there's a long way to go, but your point's correct, and we need to get that connection of user friendly of all this infrastructure correct right now, and that's something that is what we've been working on for the last, again, part of this 2-year project.
Yeah, I agree. And what you said earlier about the importance of the private sector and the public sector, this is where it comes into its own, because I fully empathise. I live rurally myself, and it's 85 pence per kilowatt hour for a 7.4 charge. And there's 2 sockets, and the dry stone wall fell down the other week. So there was only 1 socket for a while whilst that got fixed. And we wrestle with it. There's a van, a Zoe, and myself, a Renault Zoe. And we're the only 3 that I see moving around there. And I was particularly interested in the van driver on the basis that I know that he has to pay that, and is it he? And that's just going to have to be baked into his costs moving forward, so his services are then going to be increased. But good on him for doing it. But when you are a local authority, and I know you were building your hub at the same time we were building ours down in Portishead with the solar solar and 50 kilowatt rapid chargers like this amazing thing that had never happened, and now 50 kilowatt gets a bit snubbed, which is really unfair. But it was a wonderful moment when we were approached by so many private sector organisations who just wanted to treat us like a landlord and give us a revenue share for the land, and that has worked. We've seen that work where land is unlocked by that bravery from the private sector to invest, but it doesn't help the little guy, people like me who have chosen through their family scenario to live somewhere like this, and then we end up having to pay 85p per kilowatt hour just to recharge at night time because we don't have driveways. So long may it continue and long may it live. And I wanted to ask you though, your motivation is clear, that's clean air, but where did it all kind of start for you? This is 13 years now, battling all of this new technology, government legislation, funding application, having cups of tea in people's front rooms when they don't like the chargers being plonked outside their houses. But that's not your whole life. This started somewhere. What was the trigger for you that made you go, I can do this, I want to do this?
Okay, right. I'll go way back, right? So my dad's a farmer. I'll tell you. So I'm from farming. Well, my dad would say I'm not from farming stock because I live in Dundee now. But obviously, I was brought up with the work ethic and the way that the world of farming works, which is the hours of working are when it's light. If it gets dark, that's time to go home. In between that, you're working. So when I had various jobs going in, but mostly in agriculture. I spent a lot of 2.5 years in Australia and New Zealand. That I got to that old. I've left school, looking at education. What am I going to do after that? Well, I've got to get a job now. Oh dear! And then I decided that I would go and travel the world, and I didn't come back for about 2.5 years. So. I was still in agriculture. When I went out there, I got involved in sugar cane and farms and kiwi orchards in New Zealand. But it was all that work ethic. And when you come into the private sector, the public sector, from the private sector, and people start saying, you'll need to go home now because that's your 37 hours up. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's this 37 hours working? So the starting point and what drives me every day is I just look at work as that's what you do. I'm going to go old on you, old school on you, right? When people speak to me about work-life balance, I don't know what they're talking about. I have no idea what they're talking about because I just remember growing up, working on farms and going, it's not raining, you need to go out there and plough the field or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're meant to be doing. It doesn't matter where you've got a family or whatever. You've got to get the work done because that pays the bills. And that work ethic is probably the thing that drives you on. And we'll go into some psychobabble. I think you classically want your peers you're constantly my dad. I wanted to do, I was the third son, and you're wanting to say, right, I want to impress my dad. Look what I can do, dad, and everything like that. And that sits with you in you, and it never really goes away. And that's the driving force of it all. And then when, as I said, when you've got 4 children as well, all grown up, running about daft around the city, and you get that sort of look of, you then, I've lived in Dundee now for 30 odd years, and you get connected to it's a huge, as you can hear, a huge connection. This is my city, my home. I don't think I would do the same thing if I moved now to Ipswich. It would take me a while. I would have a bit of driving, but I still wouldn't have that connection with the city. And when you talk about me moving over to different things from the fleet, genuinely the big one I keep on going on about is this energy piece. So the you talk about the one that you built down here. There's the 4th one that we've built. Has really got to the point of, I've got all these EVs built in the city. Wait a minute, what happens if the electricity goes down? What happens when the power cut happens? What am I going to do? I'm back down Ipswich because I can't stay here. So the whole resilience piece had to be worked out, of the renewable energy and putting in the connected energy battery storage so that we had resilience in place. So you sometimes think, oh, well, Fraser, we're off doing that. It's because somebody's turned around to me and goes, what's going to happen to the Meals on Wheels when we don't have any power because the next storm hits? So that then you've got to then go out there and find solutions if there are any. Because I know that, and I get obsessed by things as well, getting things. So things like vehicle to grid. I was lucky enough because my councils allowed me to go to conferences, Oslo, Barcelona, all over the place. And I had a kind of moment speaking to, it was a Japanese ambassador, and it was way back in 2017 after the tsunami hit. And he described how the Nissan Leafs in 200 homes were bidirectionally charging these homes in a demonstration. And so when all the survivors had need to go somewhere, they went to these houses, and the Nissan Leaf charged up the kettles and the home, the heating, for 2 weeks while they sorted the terrible disaster out. And he told me that back in 2017, and that sat with me. And I come back here and go, why is anybody thinking this is not a good idea? Because he did it. There's always somebody's done it before you. So this whole energy piece, this whole thing, this whole drive that I've got is genuinely because I've seen it somewhere else and thought, why do they have it and not us, sort of scenario. What's wrong with Dundee? Dundee is also in a unique position for historical reasons, because we were a very old industrial city. We had jam, jute and journalism is what we're famous for, the three J's. We still have journalism, the Beano and things like that in Dundee. Jam, we do still have some jam, but there's other people making it, I must say. The jute collapsed, though, and the jute was 1 in 7 people at the time worked in the jute industry. So it was basically the lifeblood of the city. And over probably about a 30 to 40 year period, Malaysia and Thailand started building factories and undercutting us, and the industry collapsed. Why am I giving this history story? It's because Dundee ended up with all the land, with all the car parks, with everything, because nobody wanted anything to do with us, because all the industry and the money flooded out. So when we come to doing all these projects and building it, somebody comes along with an innovative idea. We'd like to do this in a car park. We're not going to NCP. You're coming to us. So we're able to make this big strategy out. And talk about the V&A Museum was built. So the first one outside London. We've got just over 150,000 population, and the year before the pandemic, 1.1 million people came to visit the V&A. Now, if you start thinking about the transportation and the issues that brings up, you think, right, how are we going to do this? And putting in parking and infrastructure for EVs for the future is all about moving the transportation for the future about. So if we've got chargers at the East multi-storey car park, you're coming in, we've got Little Mix, we've had them up in a concert in the city centre. We're going to charge that tariff today 5 times what it normally would. And then on the other side, we're going to give it for free, because that's the direction of travel we want to come into. So when you start getting all this involved, then it's really, really interesting. And then you get onto and then that drives you forward. Then you get into wacky stuff, like we've got Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, the huge gaming industry in Dundee. There's a guy, if anybody has the chance to meet him or speak to him or anything like that, Chris van de Kyle is a guy in Dundee. And he hurts my head every time I listen to him, because he's so intense and he's got so many ideas coming out of his head. And he said, look, see, when I've got an idea, why don't we go into to promote the EVs in Dundee? Why don't you go into Brewdog and get up on the wall the city of Dundee, and you can jump into EVs and you can drive around the city in EVs, crashing into things. And I went, I liked it up till the crashy bit. But, he adapted Grand Theft Auto onto or was it Minecraft, one of them. So he's in that world. And this is the thing that gets me up in the morning, when you meet people like that, and you meet these innovative people that are open-minded, and you've got a council that I tell a councillor, so I'm not going to name any names here, but way back 13 years ago, he said to me, you see, if this all goes all crazy. You're getting the blame for it. You realise that? You'll get the blame for it. And I'm like, well, I know where I am in the peck. At least you've told me where I am in the world in the pecking order here, right? Roll on 3 years later when we got all this green area down the waterfront of fantastic Dundee, where the concerts are. He actually came up to me and I thought, oh, here I'm getting my P45. This is it. He's sorted out something. And in actual fact, he said, what are you doing with the grass in the city centre? And I went, I'm going to cut it, but it's not really my job. And he went, no, you're not going to be cutting it with combustible engines, are you? And I went, oh, no, of course I'm not. No. Why would I be thinking that? I had to go running off and phone out all these companies. Do you have an electric mower? Do you have an electric? And that's the change of him going to sack me if all blew up to suddenly tell me I'm not doing enough. We have in the city centre, the grass is cut with an electric mower, the strimmers for the trees, the bushes, all electric. And that's the thing that really drives me. There you go. There's a question. I'll have to stop. I'll need a breath.
Well,
I'm just having a breath.
But, I mean, gosh, we wish, Fraser, listen, we wish we didn't have to stop. But my dear colleague Sarah has to kind of finish off in a couple of minutes. So, but this has been incredible. I mean, we haven't even talked Kylie. I mean, come on, that was one of the best things ever. We're going to save it for we're going to save it for another day.
I've got to tell the Kylie one. I've got to tell the Kylie one. You can't get away with that.
You're allowed to tell the Kylie one for a bit of fun because we'll use this at the end to promote people to come and listen to this. Go on, tell us about Kylie quickly.
What famous thing has happened to you? I can't remember the question it was, but anyway,
interesting facts.
Yes, it was 20. We'll go for it. Was 1990? Showing my age, really. 1990. I was out in Australia, and I was just blagging my way around getting jobs. I got a job at Darling Harbour. If anybody's been to Sydney, so it's just over the Harbour Bridge. And I got a job. It ended up as the head storeman for Darling Harbour Exhibition Centre. Anybody Googles it, it's a huge, lovely place. Anyway, that's another story how I got this job. But I'm in the job. And it was the Australian TV Awards. Just like BAFTAs, the BAFTAs, right? And it was the equivalent. And Kylie Minogue had just come over here to start singing in 1990. In 89, she was still in Neighbours. And Neighbours were up for an award. Right, so there was a red carpet and everything like that. Now, I got a phone call to say there is a gentleman from Japan who's going to do ice sculptures to go on beside the red carpet. So he's going to do dolphins, he's going to do lots of different things, seahorses, things like that. So the red carpet came, and I got the phone call to say he's just made them. They're absolutely amazing, but you've got a deep freeze in your store. Could you store them in there? Absolutely, no problem. Rolled them all in there. Not that RT guy that I am. I just thought, oh, God, chuck them in there. That's fine. Then I get a phone call about 5 o'clock at night and saying, would you stay back? Because there's a actress called Kylie Minogue wants to see ice sculptures that have just been made. And I went, I want to go home, but I suppose you could. Because at the time, actually, just was on Neighbours. I suppose. So in she comes. So I said, it's in the deep freeze. And she goes, oh, it's beautiful. Open the door. In we went. And it's just me and Kylie looking at ice sculptures. And she is going on about... Now, I'll tell you this right now. I remember it. She probably has no idea what I'm talking about because she's done a few things since then. So I'm in there and she's going, how beautiful it is. And I'm going, oh, yes, it's amazing how you did that and blah, blah, blah. And this is my big one here, right? I want the credit for this. She says, I've heard you've got a huge wine cellar here with kosher wine. And I went, I do. And she goes, can I have a look at that? So we went out of the big fridge, and we went and I showed her all the wine. Now, roll on a couple of years ago, and I'm going into Tesco's, and here's Kylie got wine here. And I'm looking for my name on it. Not one word, not a hint about. When I met Fraser Crichton in Sydney, I decided this is wine. So there you go. Anybody drinks Kylie wine, you think about all those years ago. And for me.
There you go.
I will. I think that's very exciting.
I've got a few of them as well, but we'll keep them.
we have got a couple of others, and we'll keep them for another day. Because listen, I think what I'd like to do Fraser, with your agreement, is we will get a session dedicated to the renewable energy in the future. Yeah?
Yep.
Because we've talked a lot about how we've got to here today. And we've got a little bit of an insight into the man of the earth, connected with the planet through agriculture and all of that. We've got a great picture of this guy, but there's stuff that we've got to cover. And so this is episode 1, everybody. With Fraser nods now, we'll have an episode 2.
Well, you might lose. I'm just
nodding.
saying you might lose people if you're putting that out there.
No. We're on episode 2 because we want to cover off how we're going to power all these vehicles, because all the vehicles are coming on, and you've got grids, and you've got 200 taxis running around, and bin lorries, and all of these kinds of things. We really need to address where that energy comes from, and I know that we've touched on it a little bit today, but I'd look in that project in the future. But Fraser, listen, and we've got 2 more really interesting facts. I mean, this guy is, they've all seemed to come to do with going down to Australia, although I think not maybe the middle one. But anyway, fantastic. Saz, quick last thought from you, because I know we got to run.
Well, I was just thinking about the comments. I don't know if you can see these, but we text each other during these these little recordings. And I'm like, this guy is a national treasure, I swear. And Paul's like, I know, right? And just the fact that we've got to have more than one session, because you are a rare breed and we are very grateful to have you here.
Well, the only thing I would have to say is I feel a wee bit naked because I don't have a lightning bolt. You 2 guys have got these lightning bolts, and I'm looking behind.
You don't have a mug either. You need a mug.
I've got this. Look, I've got my honourable gentleman. Look. I got that from one of my trips to Westminster. So, but yeah, I don't have the bowl. I quite like the bowl. So there we go. It's like,
it's good.
I'm a wee bit jealous.
What a pleasure it's been. Thank you so much for being here.
We'll arrange a cup for sure. Sorry. I think the sound's all gone to pot. I don't know what happened.
Just when you offered a
yeah,
cup,
you get a cup.
The guy's cutting. No, he's not getting a cup. No way. We've only got one left. but no, it's fantastic. You guys do a brilliant job, and you're everywhere. I think you're everywhere, and whenever anybody's got any issues, whatever, you guys are the go-to people. So you're doing a fantastic job, and I'm delighted to get this opportunity.
Fraser, thank you very much. And listen, everybody. That's been Fraser Crichton. Do check out, go to the V&A at Dundee. Go see the perfectly mown lawns with non-combustible mowers. Go and experience the various hubs around the country or around the city. There is a lot to see and do in Dundee. Do check it out, and also connect up with Fraser Crichton. And take every opportunity that you can to hear this guy. So much insight, as you've all found out today. And much more to come, we're really pleased to say. But head on over to the EV Cafe website. All of our podcasts are there, along with a whole bunch more content. And of course, we're on tour in 24. If you're listening to this in 25, you've missed us. But on tour in 24, come and check us out across the country. We'll be having more wonderful conversations just like this one. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.